People frequently talk about how much more difficult it is to cheat in a card game than to perform good sleight of hand. But if you think about it, what makes magic different is that it's inherently honest. You tell someone you're going to deceive them before you deceive them. In some way, that makes it more difficult.
In terms of filming the magic, I think what we did was try to make the filming as simple as possible and not have elaborate effects or editing. You know, certainly when there was performance involved, we didn't cut away if it was something we shot. And the other thing I think that I learned from Ricky's advice was to let the magic play, you know, alone and not have people talking over it, which is a temptation when you're doing a documentary, to have voiceover and show what you're talking about. And Ricky suggested, no, you really should let the acts play on their own, and I think that was very effective.
The real key to learning is almost like the sensei-master relationship in the martial arts. The way you want to learn is by someone that you respect showing you something.
Playing the Bond villain, I had two goals when I was in high school, and neither of them had anything to do with magic, oddly enough. One was to be in a James Bond film, as every kid of my age, I think, probably wanted to do. That was in the heyday of Sean Connery's James Bond movies. And the other was to write for the New Yorker magazine. And amazingly enough, I wound up being able to do both of those by rather strange and unusual situations. But in the Bond film, I was hired to play the part of a 28-year-old Indian man named Henry Gupta. And when they did hire me, they wanted to change my name, and I said to them if they did, I would refuse to be in the film. I just thought there was something kind of wonderful about being the father of techno-terrorism. And I did that, and we, of course, had hoped to have a card-throwing scene in the film. I don't know if you've seen, one of the versions of that film has some DVD extras, and they include the reason that I didn't throw cards in the film, and that's because when the director asked me to throw cards at Pierce Brosnan, he was about as far away from me as you are sitting in the audience. And I said, well, if you have me throw a card on him, at him, I could hit him or hurt him. And they said, no, he's way away. And I said, no, I assure you, there is a danger involved in this. And I was throwing cards at 90 miles an hour in those days. And so he said, Roger Spotswood, he said, well, I'll have a man step in front of you and block the card. And I looked a little baffled again. And I said, Roger, I really shouldn't do this. And Pierce said, oh, it's fine. And so I threw the card, and of course the man in front of him couldn't find it, and it hit Pierce Brosnan right above the eye, and that was the end of me throwing cards. I almost single-handedly ruined the most profitable series in the history of cinema.
The question was I ever tempted to become a con man or a card shark? Yes.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story of age. One of the pieces of philosophy in my life was unfortunately inspired by a real-life situation, and that is that I was given an opportunity to meet the Yellow Kid Weil, who is probably the most famous con man of the 20th century. And I was in Chicago, and a friend of Jay Marshall's, a wonderful performer in Chicago, had arranged for me to meet the Yellow Kid. And this happened very late in a journey that I had made to Chicago, and I had a plane to catch to go to New York. And people said to me, it's all right, you can see him the next time you come to town. And he was 100 years old and died 2 weeks later. So I then instilled the philosophy of life, which is never to turn down an opportunity to meet a 100-year-old man.